Go slide by slide through the scriptures with me. Who knows what beautiful truths we will see? I love the Lord, and I bet that you do too. Let's do what we came here to do.
Welcome to the Knotted Brain and our Slide by Slide Through the Scriptures series. We're going through February 9th through the 15th. This is week 7. If you're teaching on February 15th, you'll be teaching Sunday school. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. I added some prep notes if you wanted to look at the beginning of the lesson and remember what you needed to prep. To find the notes, you'll open up the presentation after you purchase it, go to the bottom left-hand side of your screen and click notes, and you can read through them or even add your own prep notes. You're going to do an activity, ancient world or today. And, in all actuality, it's both. But we're hoping that they come to that conclusion themselves. There's a paper that I will show you that you can print, or there's signs, and they will either point at which sign they're voting for. So you would tape them on the walls far enough apart so you could see if they're pointing to the left or the right, or let me see. So that's what they would look like. Or there's one that you can print out and fold it in half, and they can just flip to what side they're voting on. They would flip to show you, okay, I think that's talking about today, or I think that's just the ancient world. My guess is that they'll mostly think it's today, but let's go through some of them. Filled with violence, corrupt society, people confident in their own power, pride leading to confusion, division among people, a small group choosing to listen to God anyway. So you go through those prompts and they'll vote. And after a few prompts, if you choose to, you can ask things like, why did you choose that? Or are you torn between both of them? The uncomfortable truth, though, is every single one of those talks about ancient world, about Noah or the Tower of Babel. And you could ask, what does that make you notice about the world we're living in right now? Why do you think Jesus specifically pointed us back to Noah's day? And what feels the same and what feels different? The scriptures don't just show us that patterns repeat. They show us how people stayed spiritually safe in a corrupt world. This is the list of sections that are in this lesson. If you would like to see how every Come Follow Me lesson is structured in the manual, I do have a video on that, and how my presentations coordinate with that. But what you'll do is you can go to any of these sections at any time. This is how you make this lesson a buffet. There's no way you can get through all of it during your lesson. But let's start with, there is spiritual safety in following the Lord's prophet. When the world feels unstable, what do people usually look to for safety? And then again, if you've seen my videos or purchased one of the templates, I have several follow-up questions to keep that discussion going. I love discovery learning, and the more that a student talks, or more that the classroom talks on the right subject, the better they discover the material. I've said this in other videos, but it's like a 70-30 split. Students talking, asking, and discussing 70% of the time, the teacher talking about 30% of the time. Now, this is a long activity, and it depends on who you teach and what the Spirit tells you to do. But this is looking at the same set of scriptures with different lenses. Just like if you printed out that one paper where they voted and you folded it in half and they voted, you can print this next part on the other side of that, save some paper. And you can decide how much time your class needs. but there are 3 different handouts. Everything is the same except for the instructions on the top. One will circle a certain set of scriptures or a certain type of scriptures. One will underline and one will star. They also each have a question mark and a heart. One group will circle any words or phrases that show how people try to find safety. Another set will underline what Noah does that leads to safety. And the other set will star where you see patience, protection, and power from God. And so when you print it out, you'll do about a third of your class will have circle, a third of your class will have star, a third of your class will have underline. That way there's a mix, and you can hand them out randomly. Maybe if you do the voting paper at the beginning, then say, okay, now open up your paper. And then they find out which group they're in. And then all of the groups also have a question mark where they question anything they don't understand or they want to learn more, and a heart to any references to Jesus Christ, his atonement, or his gospel. Now you get to decide how long you want them to do it. You want just enough time where they feel like they had enough time to do a good job, but not too much time where they get restless and bored. You can, over here on the presentation, if you hover down here and then there's 3 dots usually and show timer, you can use a timer here. You can subtract a minute, add a minute. You can play music. You can use the volume. And so you could set a timer here. You can, I believe you could move it around. No, I can't move it around. I added some music, I think. So 5 minutes is probably a long time, but you can decide that. Then you discuss one at a time. You discuss the circle. Okay, what did we find where people try to search for safety? Ask questions like, what made that stand out to you? Say a little bit more about that. Where do you see that in the verse? Did anyone notice something similar or different? How does that connect to something else that somebody else mentioned? Do you see a pattern forming? So you do that through circle, those that underline, and those that star. And then you can ask, okay, does anybody have any question marks that they put on their paper? Now, in this set of scriptures, it does talk about giants in the land, and this is a perfect opportunity. And I put a QR code on the presentation where they can go straight to Scripture to Helps, which is a new resource this year, and it answers questions about giants in the land. Did prophets really live to be 900 years old? Trying to think of a few of them. But this is a perfect time to say, okay, well, let's find answers to those questions. And then you can also, after that, discuss where they see Jesus in these scriptures. I love, let's see, the one that really stood out to me. So this is the scripture, Moses 8:13-30 that they're going to discuss. And in 16 it said, and it came to pass that Noah prophesied and taught the things of God, even as it was in the beginning. And we've really learned a lot this year in Come Follow Me, how the gospel of Jesus Christ was from the beginning. So it may be hard to see at first, but they're going to really look through and discover. This is what those 3 worksheets look like. I normally don't like to do this kind of thing, but if they're going to mark it up, sometimes people want to mark their scriptures in a certain way, and this way they can do it a type of way in class, and then if they want to extend that to the scriptures, they can. Another QR code. I know, 2 QR codes. A prophet is a sign of God's love. So the QR code takes you to Teachings of Presence of the Church. The newest edition, the latest that we have, is President Russell M. Nelson. It came out right before he passed away. And at the end of every chapter that he has is a section titled Invitations and Promises. And what we're trying to do is link The importance of a prophet that the Lord gives us, what a loving thing it is to have a prophet that can guide us. And so you're inviting the students to go look for invitations or warnings from President Nelson, and it's also a way to show them where to find more resources. Now, you're asking them to find one invitation and one warning that is important to them. That can be very personal to discuss in class. And so if you are feeling like you need to do that in a more gentle way, perhaps discuss category. Just have them yell out categories like mine was about distraction, or mine was about pride, or mine was about trusting Christ. And that way they're able to contribute without feeling so vulnerable. Just like Noah, prophets don't only warn us about what could go wrong. They invite us towards what keeps us safe. And if you also want to do to print this and cut it, and so they can take it home with them, it's a QR code that goes to the same place: invitation and promises. And this is a video suggested by the manual. This is a YouTube embedded link. And it's pretty short. It's, I think, a minute and a half about. Upper left-hand corner will take you back to the sections. Let's go to this section. What makes an ending merciful even when it hurts? So this section is the flood was an act of God's mercy, but we're trying to just bring real life. When have you experienced something that ended and it hurt so bad, but you see, okay, that was important. Of course, we don't want them to discuss things that may be very personal, unless they feel inspired to. But it can be pretty surface level. I mean, as I'm talking about this, I thought, you know what? Sometimes people see an ending of a TV show that it hurt that the TV show ended, but you see how merciful it is. I know that sounds trivial, but it applies. And then there are some more discussion questions. What part of that ending actually helped? Let's see. There's probably about 15 of them here. What does mercy look like when God is thinking long term? What's one sentence you use to explain this idea to somebody who struggles with it? So you can discuss that for quite a bit of time. How can the flood be considered an act of mercy? It was very destructive. Elder Neal A. Maxwell said, corruption had reached an agency-destroying point, that spirits could not in justice be spent here. So you're going to divide the class into 4. You've seen this before. You know that I like to divide the group before I tell them what they're going to do. You divide them in 4, and then you're going to tell them, I'm going to give you a scripture reference, and then you're going to find, what do you find that shows the Lord a tender mercy and love for his people? And then you'll click to reveal which scripture verses that group is going to discuss. And give them a few moments to discover, and however long you think, you'll get an idea. And then I have several follow-up questions you can ask. Who's being protected here? You can have them either share one group at a time or just all as a class. Hey, in my group, I saw that God protected his people by this. And then you can keep asking questions. What suffering is God responding to? What is God preventing from continuing? Why do you think God didn't act sooner or later? Lots of follow-up questions. All right, we're going to go up here. What are some things in everyday life that instantly remind you of a promise, commitment, or relationship? Things like, they might say things like a wedding band, or a teddy bear their grandma gave them, or a blanket their mom gave them, or it could be anything. What makes that reminder stick in your mind? Is it the object itself or the meaning attached to it? So lots of different discussion questions you can use. What kind of reminder would be hard to ignore? What do these reminders have in common? We're going to talk about God's reminders. So what is the rainbow a reminder of? And as I was preparing this lesson, I thought a lot about how merciful God is. Some people would say God is trauma informed. I don't know what kind of emotions, what kind of experience the people on the ark had. Did they hear the people drowning? Did they hear the animals drowning? Was it a violent storm that went on and on and on? I'm sure that they had friends and family that didn't survive. So it was a traumatic event for them. Even though they survived, it had to be heartbreaking and scary. And God gives them a rainbow and he says, you'll see the clouds and then you'll see the rainbow. And I think of how he takes that exact moment when that anxiety might be coming back, that they might be thinking, oh no, here we go again. And he said, no. That exact moment, he gives them a reminder. What symbols or objects, anything else God has given you to remind you of covenants? And so you're actually going to be building a table on the board, symbol, promise, and reminder. And you'll go through things like rainbow, sacrament, scriptures, temples, garments. And then you'll discuss promises that those scriptures, that those symbols have, and the reminder. I need to correct this. I am going to have these reveal one at a time. So this is from a talk that was suggested in the manual, and this is just a 3-minute clip of it. So powerful. I loved it. Okay, we're back here, and let's go to the last section. Have you ever tried to get somewhere without using the road or path that actually leads there? And of course, what are we talking about here? Tower of Babel. But we're having them think about it before we really discuss what the subject is. What were you hoping would happen? How did it turn out? Why do people avoid the path that actually works? What usually motivates shortcuts? All right. So we're going to play. I'm going to call it a game, but maybe it's not a game. The Path to Heaven, comparing the path of heaven taken by Babel and Zion. So here's the rules. You ready for this? They can only answer one-word answers to the questions, but those can't be yes or no. And then we're going to do round 1. We're going to go through those scriptures. The scriptures aren't there for us to read through all of them. It's for the student's reference as you ask questions. You ask questions like, what did the people of Babel trust most? How were the people of Babel trying to reach heaven? What seemed to motivate them? There's a few questions. And then we're going to do round 2, which is Zion. What did the people of Zion trust most? All of the same questions. And then last question. What is the only way to heaven that God has provided? That is the most important. Jesus Christ is the most important lesson in that comparison. Okay. What did you discover today that helps you believe Jesus Christ is reaching for you personally? You can get to this page at any time during the presentation. And sometimes we know that the power of the atonement is real, but we forget that it's for us. Sometimes you're helping other people and you forget it's for you. And hopefully we can take that with us after the lesson. I've included a bonus printable treat tag, a sweet reminder God keeps his promises. And so you can if you choose to use this, it's just a printable, it's not editable, but you can clip it to any colorful treat, colorful candy. I was thinking maybe Skittles or the sour, it looks like rainbows, the sour strips, or fruit by the foot, or I don't, okay, I'm a chocolate person, so maybe I don't know what candy is out there. Or any baked treat with sprinkles, anything that's colorful. And kids will love it. And then at the end of every lesson, I have extra slides, so you don't have, if you wanted to add anything, and then you can drag and drop to where you want it in the presentation. So this presentation is available on Etsy Ready-Made. It's a Canva template, and you can have the coupon code. It's good through the end of February, slide by slide 25. You get 25% off so you can try it. All right, I hope you have a great lesson. Enjoy your time, and thank you for being here.